Get Up Nation. My name is Ben Biddick. I am the creator and host of the Get Up Nation podcast, where I serve individuals, organizations, and societies to develop and sustain resilience and perseverance. I'm the co-author of Get Up, The Art of Perseverance, with former Major League Baseball player and CEO of Luron Living, Adam Greenberg. The Get Up Nation podcast is brought to you in partnership with GotYourSixCoffee.com, where Navy veteran Eric Hadley is committed to serving first responders, veterans, and their families through a variety of nonprofit organizations. No stranger to adversity, Eric has fused necessity of coffee with his passion for public service. You're already purchasing coffee. Why not empower your coffee with purpose? Why not purchase coffee that not only has your six, but also has the backs of those who don a uniform of service for our communities and great country? Learn more about Eric and his freshly roasted, award-winning coffee at GotYourSixCoffee.com. Welcome to this episode of the Get Up Nation podcast. Recently, I had the honor and privilege of speaking with Mike Day. He's the author of Perfectly Wounded, a memoir about what happens after a miracle. Scheduled for release on June 9, 2020, Mike writes about his experience serving as a Navy SEAL in Iraq's Anbar province. On April 6, 2007, Senior Chief Day was the first through the door, where 4 terrorists were waiting in ambush. Mike was shot 27 times and hit with grenade shrapnel in that moment. He also killed 4 terrorists, cleared the rest of the house, and rescued 6 women and children before walking out of the house on his own power. He was medevac'd to safety and began his profound journey of recovery. While being treated for his wounds, he lost 55 pounds in 2 weeks. It took nearly 2 years for his body to recover from his injuries, although he still deals with significant pain. He was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury during these actions. It is my profound honor today to speak with this amazing human being. Get Up Nation, please welcome Mike Day.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be talking with you today. I can't wait to read your book coming out this summer. Mike, let's start from the beginning. Your childhood wasn't easy. You experienced periods of homelessness. Your home life was violent and chaotic. Will you share a little bit about those experiences and how you think it led to you being such a phenomenal Navy SEAL?
Well, the name of the book, Perfectly Wounded, came from an ER doctor a couple of years ago that I was talking to, and I was going over all the gunshot wounds, and a friend of mine asked this ER doctor who's seen multiple gunshot wounds and what bullets are actually supposed to do, and he was like, I don't know, I can't explain it other than that he's been perfectly wounded. So I was like, man, that's a great name for the book.
Yeah.
But it's also been kind of my life. I've just been wounded enough to where it didn't break me, but forced me to move forward and figure out how to get past things. Yeah, my father was medically retired from the Navy with schizophrenia. He was an alcoholic. He was extremely violent. My earliest childhood memory is of him breaking my mother's arm over his knee. Then he asked me to go get him a glass of water, and unknowingly, I got a glass. He breaks the glass and tries to cut her heart out. That's my earliest childhood memory.
Wow.
But it was violent in that house. It was chaotic. I just assumed that everybody else's house was like this, and that it was normal. But come to find out that it definitely wasn't normal. I had really shitty parents, like a lot of people do, and I talk about that in the book. I think childhood trauma, especially by the hands of a parent, is way more destructive. We learn our constructs and what we believe and what we are inside of the first 7 years.
Yeah.
I had to learn to fight through being in such a violent environment, and I do have to thank him for it, which is one of the best therapies that I think I've come across or revolution that I've come across that was very helpful to me was to identify whatever it was or person that hurt you, how they hurt you, how they made you feel, what you learned good from it, and then to thank and honor that, whatever hurt you. I know there's a lot of people in this world that acquire the victim mentality, and they're still waiting for somebody, the person that hurt them or the thing that hurt them, to correct the wrong. And that's not going to happen. It's better to have a mindset not to blame somebody, even if they did cause it, because they're not going to fix it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then as you grew, you're having these profound experiences, and the violence didn't quit. I mean,
Will you share a little bit about your school experiences? You were dealing with, people who were involved in gang activity, violence, even as you continued to grow up into your later teen years.
I got kicked out of high school. I was expelled. I couldn't go to school in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. There's somehow a line in the education system, but I didn't know what to do. Luckily, came across a program called the Job Corps. I went to the one in Baltimore. There's a handful of them across the country, and it's a government-funded program. But most of the people that are there, between 16 and 21 years old, I think 21 years old is where they cut it off. It's a vocational school. They have a bunch of vocations there, and you can get your GED. So I got my GED, and I got my journeyman's license in carpentry. They also offered a college program that I attempted. I didn't make it through the first semester, and it was just because, you can imagine when there's 1,500 kids in one place, and most of them are court directed. You go do this, or you're going to jail. That kind of sets the scene for where I was. I think it was the first time I've ever experienced being a minority. There was 1,500 students, 10 of us were white. We got picked on a bunch. I remember this guy. I don't even know what his name was. They called him Juggy. He was a great boxer. I used to spar with him all the time. He wouldn't wear headgear, but I would have to because I couldn't hit the dude. He used to use my head for a speed bag. And that was, what year was that? Like 86, 87 or so. And he was talking about beating up Mike Tyson at that point. I didn't know who Mike Tyson was. I don't think he could have taken down Mike Tyson now. It was court directed, so there was prostitution going on. There was little drug rings going on. Pretty much anything kind of crime that's going on in the inner city was basically just relocated to this place. But it was a great experience. I'm glad I got a GED, which actually helped me later because I tried to join the Marine Corps and they didn't accept me because I had a GED, which is kind of an anomaly. Things happen for me the way they're supposed to. I meet the right people when I'm supposed to. I get the right information. I've had to learn patience to wait for things to come about. I kind of like to say everything always works out for me, just not the way I expect it to. And that's true. I don't think I've ever had anything work out exactly the way I expected it to. But a lot of times, the way it does work out is better than I expected. So,
as I talk with people about resilience and as they've faced severe adversity and things like that it's a common theme that the most resilient people are doing exactly what you do and did throughout your life. And truly, I want to get into this more so that people can really understand, the depth of what you have experienced here. You were in that environment. You couldn't get into the Marine Corps because of the educational barrier there, but then reality transitioned you towards the Navy SEALs. Will you share how that process went?
I would never berate the Marine Corps. I love working with those guys. Pre 9/11, there was a bit of rivalry, but post 9/11, we've done a lot of work with the Marine Corps and the SEAL teams. And quite honestly, the standard grunt is that's where we should recruit new SEALs from. Is from the Marine Corps. I think we have a lot better attrition rate. A lot lower attrition rate if we were to take Marines because they're almost the same animal we are. They're pretty resilient. They can pretty much. I've seen them live in the worst places.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us in the military know that if you want to live a cozy life, you go to the Air Force. But the Marine Corps is also known as what I would say. Well, they have a mentality. The Marine Corps. We can do that same job with half the money and half the people. And a bunch of old equipment. The Marines are going to get it done. But there's no way, the way they structured and the way they work together, I could have gone past 4 years. So it was great that I only had the GED and I had a neighbor that was telling me, you should go check out the Navy SEALs. And this is like, what is this? I got in the Navy in 1989, so this is like 1988. Nobody knew what a Navy SEAL was back then. It's a little bit different now. But yeah, I didn't join the military because I was trying to serve my country. I just had nowhere else to go. And I am a patriotic person, but that's not the reason why I joined. And I can tell you, after doing 21 years, I can still tell you that it wasn't because I was patriotic. It was more because of the guys I was with.
I see.
I had to be with those kind of people to prosper and to be challenged. I wouldn't have been challenged anywhere else like I was challenged in the SEAL teams. But it was still a lot easier than I would have expected. And that's what I got to give to my father. He made me build my own resiliency. I thought BUD/S was going to be a lot harder. They didn't even beat us up there. Well, I got punched once by an instructor, but I thought that was going to be commonplace, which I didn't really care because I was already used to it.
The last time we spoke, we talked about how you never had a family and how, finding your way into the SEAL teams, and you met a special person during that process. Will you go into some of how you shored up some support during that process and were married and had children? We'll talk a little bit about that process of that time in your life.
My wife was the first, she was my girlfriend all the way through BUD/S, was the first person that ever showed any kind of nurturing. It was strange. I didn't even know what it was. But I dated her all the way through BUD/S. Although I say BUD/S was easier than I thought. I was in 3 different BUD/S classes. So I was there for a little bit longer than I was supposed to, and wound up getting married the last week of BUD/S. Literally got married on Sunday at the Hotel Del, woke up the next day, ran down the beach to work. But it's not having somebody to nurture you and not even knowing what it is, and me being able to say that it confused me is pretty sad, because I know that, my childhood wasn't as bad as a whole lot of people. They had it worse. And childhood trauma by the hands of a parent, I would say, is the basis for a lot of our healthcare problems in this country.
Yes.
I read a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you read that one?
Yes. Yep. Phenomenal book.
And that's what that dude says. That childhood trauma turns into mental illness. It turns into all kinds of diseases and problems in our adult lives. It also continues to that person. A lot of times that those traumatized people will continue to traumatize other people in their lives. Some of us break the cycle. Mostly break the cycle.
Truly a survivor in the truest sense of the word. You've been in the storm, it seems like, your whole life, and then you're in combat. You have this experience that day, and as we've talked, you were sharing how it doesn't even seem real sometimes, or that you wonder about your memory. But will you talk about that day and what happened and how it has affected you?
In that event, something that's happened to me multiple times throughout my life, which I wish I can figure out how to do it on purpose, is that time slows down almost to the point where I can see everything frame by frame, like in the Matrix. But this event made me realize that I've been doing it my whole life. Just never took notice to it. When I was a kid, when I take that bad jump off of the BMX ramp and I know it's going to hurt, everything slows down. When I fell out of the trees, everything slowed down because I knew it was going to hurt. And when I was on the Navy parachute team, every time I got into what we call a wrap, we did a lot of Cambria relative work. And essentially, you just take your parachute and fly into each other and you build formations. Well, when you're learning that, sometimes things go wrong and parachutes collapse, and every one of those times, everything slowed down. I wasn't scared. I wasn't short for time to figure out how to fix the problem that I was in. And in this gunfight, frame by frame, I watched bullets. I could see the spin. I could see the vapor trails coming off the bullets coming out of my weapon, and also the bullets that were coming at me. When I got into that room, it was probably 3 to 5 seconds before I wound up landing on the ground next to the first guy that I killed. That might as well have been minutes for me. I mean, I watched the guy die. I watched the life leave him in his eyes. I can tell you where most of the rounds that I shot, where they hit. And that's why I say, I was there. I don't believe it. I question my own memory because it was so surreal. And what happened to me, somebody posted on Facebook, tell me something about you that's true, that sounds ridiculous, or something like that. And I put this on there. I was like, I got shot 27 times in a gunfight. They all started jumping on me and beating up on me because it does sound ridiculous. I know it does. I actually like when people call bullshit on it because it is. I can't explain it. I shouldn't be here. But you know what? I got out of the Navy and I was a wounded warrior advocate for 7 years, and I I know other people that have more incredible stories than me. I know people that had penetrating brain wounds. I know 2 people that took a round to their forehead, came out the back of their head, blew out half their skull. And one of them right now is doing computer forensics, chasing after child pornographers and traffickers.
Wow.
Well, for the government. The guy got shot in the head. Went through his brain. He lost brain matter.
Wow.
I was assigned to both of those people. Sam Shainhike, he's a MARSOC Marine. And Holly Crabtree, she was a corpsman that was working with SEAL Team 3. And Al-Qaeda switched to a tactic of if you're gonna shoot at them, shoot the women first because of the psychological effect that it has on men to see a woman get shot in combat. It's a bit different to see a woman get shot and to see a man get shot. It's already ingrained in us. We have to give preference to the women as far as protection and keeping them out of danger. I mean, it's ingrained in us. And it does have a greater psychological effect. But Holly's doing pretty damn good, too. I mean, she goes to work. She pays her bills. She took a bullet through her head. I wasn't very impressed with her family. She came from a bad gene pool and wasn't cared for as a child.
You talked about how the significance of this, as you were getting medical care after, the effect that it had on the people around you, and how you were much more able to deal with it in a resilient fashion. But it was so different for your family to see, you had lost 55 pounds, you had been this rock of strength and stability, and then to see you injured like that, it had an effect on the family. Could you go through what that experience was like?
Yeah, and I didn't realize it until years later. My girls are strong people, and they found their own way, but they'd never seen me get hurt. I didn't talk about my job a lot. I mean, the kids knew what I did. I wouldn't say that they were unimpressed, but it was just normal stuff,
Okay.
Now, even when I was on the jump team, we used to jump into football games. I'd take my kid to the football game so she can watch me jump out of an airplane and land in the middle of the stadium in front of 40,000, 50,000 people. You know what she was more interested in?
What?
The seventh inning stretch and getting a hot dog. The baseball games, that's all she wanted to do is sing, take me out to the ball game.
Huh.
It was no big deal. Her dad just fell out of an airplane at 13,000 feet. But that's kind of the way it was in the house. And that's because that's also the way I treated it. It was just a job. But I literally have never had an injury. They had seen me have one other one. I pinched a femoral nerve and put me down for a couple months. And that's just a lot of people get sciatica. Well, I have to be different, so I pinched my femoral. That was painful. But I've never had any other injury up until this point other than like a couple broken fingers and toes, and that doesn't count. Everybody kicks a coffee table. That's not an injury. But I was pretty beat up. But to me, it was more of a inconvenience. My wife Brenda, when she got me home, because I was only in the hospital for 16 days. The initial estimate was, hey, I figured out that there was a checklist of stuff I had to get done. I just did it.
Wow.
Walk up 3 flights of stairs. Yeah, it hurt, but I did it. Walk around the ward unassisted. It hurt, but I did it. Because this op went down. I was about a week and a half from coming home. This was a turnover operation with the new SEAL team that was coming in the country.
Huh.
So when we do a turnover, we got to teach them everything. This is how you do all the administrative stuff, and this is how we're running our ops. This is where you get support from. This is how you get aircraft. That's what we're teaching them. And this was the first op we did with the new guys coming. I kind of felt bad for them. I was like, man, if that would have happened to me my first night in country, I would have had some crazy thoughts. And it was actually kind of rough for us. We got IED'd 6 times on that deployment. Only 1 Purple Heart out of it, though. So luckily, we didn't get any catastrophic IEDs. But when we first got there, in the first 2 weeks, we got IED'd twice. And we were just going to the airport to pick up guys coming in the country. Do you remember the bridge where they hung those in Fallujah, where they hung the contractors?
Yeah.
Well, Todd French was one of those guys. He was my buzz instructor. And we got IED'd right at that bridge. Nothing, it wasn't effective. We just kept going. Like 5 miles down the road, we got ID'd again. We had to medevac somebody off of that one. But he was back at work in a few days. He just caught a bunch of frag in his arm. Wow. We probably could have I think we might have hurt him more with a tourniquet than the actual frag did. But that was in the first 2 weeks.
Wow.
Oh, and that box of CBR shit that you think you're never going to have to open, that got open. We almost had to go do an op in Mach 4.
Wow.
This is the first 2 weeks. I'm like, we're all going to die. We're all going to die on this deployment. But by the end of the deployment, I had done 140 DAs.
Wow.
That's unheard of. There wasn't a single guy in that troop that didn't do at least 100 DAs.
Wow.
But that doesn't count all the other stuff that we were doing over there. We were combat advisors to the MIT teams in Fallujah. There was 3 MIT teams. I don't even know what that MITT. I don't even know what that stands for. A bunch of reservists that are running a bunch of Iraqis in Fallujah. We were teaching medical stuff. We were teaching basically how to be soldiers to these MIT teams. We also had we developed the Fallujah SWAT team. We had that going on. Plus, we were running our own little buds class. So when I say the guys that did 100 DAs, which is unheard of in a deployment, a 6-month deployment, they had a bunch of other stuff going on too.
Wow.
It was busy. I was the platoon chief in this platoon. In the first 4 months, the guys were hungry. This is how I know you can't work somebody like that for past 4 months. And the way we had things set up, we gotten so good at it, and the reason why we got to do so many ops was because our target development was so good that we, at any one time, we had 10 to 15 pre-approved con ops. All we had to do is wait for that person to pop their head up. And that happened almost every night. And when I say a DA, we would see other targets on the way to the target we were going to, or on the way back, and we'd go get them too.
Wow.
So you would think a DA, okay, you're going to hit one building? No. Each one of those DAs was multiple buildings. Wow. Because we would have to flex, because a lot of times that person's not there. But somebody there knows where he is, so they would show us. It was a very exciting deployment. The guys got to do a lot of work. But for the first 4 months, the guys would come to me and be like, hey, what do we got tonight? Because the standard thing that happened was somewhere between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning, we would get the word of, hey, go get this guy. After 4 months of doing that, I had to go find them. They were smoked. I was smoked. But we kept going. The guys at one point were asking me if I was just trying to push the numbers up, which is not true. I've never been big on awards. Yeah. I understand what they are.
Yeah.
For the guys, and I spent a lot of time getting guys awards because I understood that, helped them get advanced. But the award system's pretty skewed. But not hard to write a Bronze Star for a guy that deserves it, so he can get 2 points on his test, so he can make next rank.
That brings up one of the things that I've read during the research is you've been described as a skilled leader with a unique ability to bring out the best in others. What do you think is the reason that you've been able to bring out the best in people?
Well, a lot of times we do stuff and we don't actually realize or understand how we did it. I don't understand. I didn't understand. I didn't have the language to describe how I got through my childhood. I probably didn't have the language or the understanding of why I was a skilled leader. And this is what I find about leaders. I like to watch people. If you don't build trust, if they don't trust you, and you don't show competence, they will not work. As a matter of fact, as a leader, I've come to find a lot of bad leaders think they're more important than the people actually doing the work. I had to learn not to micromanage the guys. They used to tell me, hey, Chief, get out of my back pocket when I would show up. But that was what was great about the SEAL teams. All you got to do in the SEAL teams to get something done is tell a guy what the end state is. You don't have to tell them how to do it. Like, hey, we need to get this done. And that person, as a leader, you should just let them go so they get the buy-in. It also builds trust.
Right.
They're like, oh, that guy trusts me, so I'll trust him.
Yeah.
We've all probably seen bad leaders. They're usually egotistical, self-important, and they don't take care of their people.
Right.
But I think the guy saw that I spent extra time taking care of them. I saw more like my own kids than I saw coworkers. But if you don't know what the hell you're doing, which a lot of times as a leader you're going to be, quite honestly, sometimes there's people that are supposedly working under you that are smarter than you and better at the job that you're actually doing. And I had people that were junior to me that were better SEALs. And I knew it. I knew who had the skill sets to get stuff done, and I let them do it. I didn't try to act like I knew everything, which is impossible. Some of us are better at some things than others and worse. A good leader knows how to just make sure that the people that they're working with have the means to accomplish the mission. That's all a leader's supposed to do, is just make sure that everybody has what they need to get stuff done. And they recognized it. I had a reputation in the SEAL teams to be a little bit hard-nosed. I didn't think I was. I look back on it now, and maybe I was a little bit hard-nosed. But the greatest compliment I ever received from anybody about how I did in the SEAL teams was a guy, brand new guy, a couple of them. They're like, yeah, because they did our troop, and then we get back, and they just get reloaded into another one. And they had that experience. So these are new guys. They haven't done a SEAL team deployment. And they came back to me and were like, man, you were such an asshole when you were the platoon chief. But I did my second platoon, and I wish I had you back.
How was it? You'd spent so much time serving with these amazing people, and then the incident happens where you're injured. And how was that transition for you? It had to be difficult. You're dealing with physical injuries. You're dealing with transitioning out of the military. How was that process for you? Yeah.
I mean, I got in the Navy when I was 17. I did 21 years in the Navy. I was pretty much what you would say institutionalized. Mm-hmm. I think the civilian world's harder than being in the military. Yeah, you got to roll yourself around in the dirt every once in a while in the military, or a lot. I think it's a lot harder out here. Mm-hmm. To maintain a job and support your family. When you're in the military, quite honestly, you got to be pretty bad for someone to get fired. You got to really mess up to get fired out of the military. And out here, everybody cycles through a new job every 3 to 5 years. So I was scared. Luckily I had been injured, and I was being watched by the SOCOM Care Coalition, and I had an advocate. And the only thing I ever asked for was a job. My advocate, who was also combat wounded soldier, he equated the job to trying to be a bartender, although you're an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. That would be pretty damn hard. And he just didn't want the job anymore. So I took his job. And that fixed a whole lot, and I think it helped me a lot, too. I was probably unknowingly, subconsciously taking care of myself because I ran people's medical boards. I found nonprofits that brought guys on events. I did a couple 500-mile bike rides with a group called Ride to Recovery.
Wow.
We climbed Mount Rainier with Camp Patriot.
Wow.
So for like the first 4 years, I was able to do that. Manage everybody's cases. As a non-medical case manager. Run medical boards, get VA disability, Social Security disability, which wounded people could still receive, even though they were pulling in military pay. So anything that I had to do to improve their situation, grants, I did find out, though, I didn't have a whole lot of boundaries. I was working so much, and it eventually burnt me out, and I had to leave. I think it was really good for me to be around people that were guys like Taylor Morris. He's a quad amp. I never saw that guy have a bad day. He has to have bad days, but I never saw it.
Wow.
Guys like Dan Kanassen, who's physically a freak. He's got a lot of injuries a lot of people don't see. All they see is that he's a double above the knee amp. I remember when he first started getting up on his legs. We did what was that race in D.C., the Army 5-miler?
Okay.
And he was turning like a 12, 13-minute pace. And we just flew a wedge front and back and made sure nobody bumped into him.
Wow.
That dude's turning like a 5.5, 6 minute pace now.
Wow.
In marathons.
Jeez. He's
been to the Paralympics twice. He's got like 8 or 9 Olympic medals through the Paralympics. Went back to Harvard or Yale. He went to some other crazy school. He's a freak and force of nature. But those are the people that I worked with.
Wow.
It's kind of hard to feel sorry for yourself when you're around people like that. So it was good for me. I liked it.
At this point, you have this book coming out. You found a sense of purpose after being in the teams and serving other wounded veterans. What purpose and meaning are you pursuing now at this phase in your life?
A lot of people are going to assume another Navy SEAL book. It's a big shoot 'em up book, and quite honestly, there's a lot more in that. There's more volume of not shoot 'em up than there actually is shoot 'em up. I talk about what I witnessed when I was at the Care Coalition, which I think was that 7 years was more influential in my life. I learned more about people and myself in that 7 years doing that job than I had previously. So the information I have in that book, thank God I got shot 27 times. Nobody would listen to me otherwise. But I always do seem to run into the right people with the right information at the right time. I'd love to change the healthcare system. It has to change. So I think with all the topics that are in my book, from child abuse to combat to healthcare, just about everybody's going to be able to find something in there that they can relate to and that they've suffered through. And I'm not a person that feels that I could be giving advice, and I won't give advice. I just kind of say, this is how I did it. You should never say should to somebody. You should do this.
Yeah.
Or tell them I know how you feel, because you don't.
Right.
So I think the book's going to be very helpful because we're all traumatized. Everybody is traumatized at some point in their life. And the fact of the matter is it's probably going to continue to happen until you go away, And everybody wants to try to figure out how to build resiliency. And I think a lot of people will be able to read this book and maybe pull something out of it that will help build resiliency.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like anything else, you got to train to it. If all you do is sit around on the couch and eat Twinkies, the first time something bad happens, you're not going to be able to deal with it because you haven't trained to it.
Right.
If you're in a bad state right now, you trained yourself to it. You allowed the voices in your head, which are probably the most damaging, not the ones that other people are saying. It's when you start believing it and you start telling it to yourself that's more damaging. So I think without giving advice, I just want to try to provide an example. It's like this coronavirus thing that's going on right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's all bullshit. I applied for a job as a bagger at Harris Teeter, and I'm doing that to try to be an example. We shouldn't be afraid of this. Look at what's going on. Don't listen to them bunch of fear mongers, because every one of them's doing it. Even mostly been a conservative most of my life. Even Fox News is putting out bad shit and fair and balance my ass. So I don't like to give advice. I just try to kind of give it an example. It's funny. The first time I ever got towards the end of a podcast and I talked about that gunfight. It was incredible. I mean, I got shot in both legs, both arms. My thumb was almost amputated. I had a round go through my scrotum, separate my vas deferens. I got shot in the stomach, had a colostomy bag. I had a stent in my bladder. I lost about a foot of intestine, which is really nothing. I know people that lost all of them.
Wow.
My back, it's incredible that I got shot so many times and only 2 bones got hit.
Yeah.
My right scapula took 2 rounds and shattered my scapula, which is probably the most prominent problem I have. I just lost a job last year because of it. I went back to teaching military free fall with the SEAL teams, and come to find out, sometimes when I reach back, my whole back spasms, and I can't open my main parachute. So I had 3 events where I had to deploy my reserve because my right arm wasn't working.
Gee.
The last one tore my pec off my arm. So your pectoral muscle is attached down your arm in between your tricep and bicep, and it completely ripped off.
Wow.
That was the end of that job. But I told the boss after the second time, I was like, man, I thought they were going to fire me there. They're like, you can't even open a parachute. What are you doing?
Huh.
I I told him when I got on the ground after the second one, I was like, man, if I can't open my parachute again, I'm just going to quit. But luckily, the company also had other positions at the training command that I was working at, and ironically, I got to go back and teach close quarters combat.
Huh.
That's what we use to clear houses. I got to teach close quarters combat and SOUC, Special Operations Urban Combat. And the irony there is tactics changed a little bit because of me. So now I'm teaching how not to be Mike did. Don't do what Mike did. because there's a better way to do it. Instead of running into a room with your hair on fire. But it was great that I got to do that. No, I left that job at the Care Coalition, which I wasn't doing well. I mean, I had this in the book. I was literally getting ready to get out of my truck and shoot myself in the chest when I got a phone call from the one person that I would have answered the phone for, who was my boss. He's a good friend of mine. If he hadn't have called me, I'd have shot myself.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. But I came to find out. I mean, you say in the intro that I had PTSD. I didn't have PTSD from this.
Oh, okay.
I wound up. I had a lot of people that were trying to push me into going to an inpatient facility. Hey, do this, do that.
Uh-huh.
And I said no to everything, and then they finally came up with one that I was willing to do to get them off my back. And that was to deal with a doctor, a holistic doctor, online. I just had to talk to him on Skype. Huh. He tested my crap, my urine, my blood, and he does a lot of stuff with epigenetics.
Okay. Yep.
My problem wasn't PTSD.
Okay.
I have had PTSD from another event that I'm not going to talk about yet, but I had an event happen to me that for about 3.5 months, every time I fell asleep, I saw the scene. I couldn't sleep because every time I fell asleep, I had to watch it again.
Huh.
That eventually went away. But with this guy, Dr. Anthony Beck, that I talked to on Skype to test all my stuff, come to find out that I didn't have the proper flora in my stomach.
Oh, okay.
Which is bacteria.
Right.
I had all the bad flora. I didn't have any good flora.
Huh.
So my body literally couldn't break down the food, so that's the way it happens. You eat it, your stomach churns it up and pumps it through your intestines, and your intestines is where all the transfer of vitamins and minerals happens. Mm-hmm. My body couldn't do it. I didn't believe it was going to work, but 2 months after being treated with him, which, the treatment for me, and it's going to be different. That's why medicine nowadays is pretty fucked up, because it's not specific to the individual. Uh-huh. So I took a week of antibiotics, which killed everything in my stomach. That's what antibiotics do. And I'm sure there's probably in the small print on antibiotics, when people get issued antibiotics, which we take too much right now as a culture, you go to the doctor and they don't even care if what you got's bacterial or viral. They can tell. They can look at your blood and tell you if it's bacterial or viral, mm-hmm. but they just give you antibiotics anyway, which messes up your gut flora, which inhibits your ability to intake the proper nutritions and vitamins. So all my tests showed the flora was bad. I had no vitamin D in my system. I had no vitamin B. And anybody that knows anything about psychology knows that those two vitamins, minerals, you have to have that stuff in your system or you're going to have a psychological effect. Mm-hmm. My testosterone was bottomed out. It was all connected. We've been dumbed down so much in this society and led to believe that, that one thing you're eating is not bad because it's just that one thing. But it's all the EMF, all the cell phones, all the radio waves and shit that we're exposed to in our environment. I had a bunch of heavy metals in my bones that had to be leached out of my bones. We're poisoning ourselves as a society. Mm-hmm. And they want to know why we have such a bad mental illness problem in this country.
Mm-hmm. And cancer. Oh,
yeah. I'm pretty sure you almost can't get cancer if you don't eat sugar, which is the most addictive substance on the face of the planet. It kills more people than anything. But, people don't have personal responsibility either. I watch people that are type 2 diabetics, which I could fix, even though I got kicked out of high school, in probably 3 months with diet. But they take their diabetic medication so they can drink their soda. And they want social medicine? I would institute social medicine if I can guarantee that you have personal responsibility. I mean, a third of the population is obese. A third of the population is taking some kind of SSRI, which, one common thing with every active shooter in this country, SSRIs. They were all some kind of mood stabilizer. And a lot of them probably don't need to be on it. If you would look at medicine as individual to the person, and we need to, as a nation, as a society, start making people personally responsible. And if they want socialism, I tell my liberal friends, I love socialism and communism. There's one problem with it: human nature. Because there's very few examples of communism, like true communism. Not what we think communism is. But there's communes in Arizona that work just fine. I would suggest that they probably not let those get any bigger, because it's funny how it goes from a commune, and when a group gets bigger, it turns into a bureaucracy.
Mike, who are you thankful for today?
I'm thankful for every experience I've ever had. I think that whether you know it or not, every interaction you have, it changes you. As we grow and we experience different things, your ideas change. So that interaction, no matter how small it is or insignificant, or on the other end, very significant, that changes ideas and stuff. So I would think probably the thing I'm the most thankful for are the people that challenge me the most. They force me to figure things out. So that's why I'm thankful for my father, because he taught me how to be through terrible examples. I just had to do everything opposite of him. But he made the SEAL teams easy for me. I like to be challenged. And that's the only way you can build resiliency.
Yeah.
Is to challenge yourself. You got to train to it. You got to figure out where. I'm not saying going out and beat the hell out of yourself, but you have to practice it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, terrible stuff happens to people, and the people around them are like, I don't know if I could go through this.
Yeah.
I've just had 3 of my friends, their sons died. Their sons, grown men. And that's one of the instances that I look at and I'm like, man, I don't know how you do it. But they have to do it.
Right.
You're going to sink or swim.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing I'm afraid of right now. Something bad happening to my kids. People get through a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. Looking from the outside, you're like, man, I don't know if I could do that. Which is a bad language to tell yourself anyway.
Right.
You should be able to tell yourself, I'm not going to worry about anything. And if something happens, because we know it's going to. People are going to die in our lives. Bad things are going to happen. Don't worry about it and wait for it.
Yeah.
Just know that you're going to be able to get through when it happens.
Right.
Stress kills anyway. Stress will kill you.
Yeah, the worry just makes it worse.
Yeah. So, that's how I look at it. I just know inherently bad shit's going to happen.
Yep.
You can't stop it.
Yeah.
You can do everything right. Like on that night on that op.
Yeah.
We did everything right. Bad shit happened.
Yeah.
We dealt with it. But if you tell yourself you're going to fail before it even happens,
right.
You're probably going to fail.
Right. You're making yourself fail.
Because what other people are saying to you or telling you that you are is really not that bad. I mean, we need to fix this bully culture. But it's not the bullies that get these people to commit suicide. It's that person starting to believe what they are telling them.
Right.
And then they reinforce it.
Yeah.
When you start judging yourself, that's a terrible thing.
Yeah. True.
Because it's not theirs anymore. It's not their language. It's now yours.
Yeah.
And it's way more destructive.
Absolutely. Is there anything else, Mike, that you'd like to share today?
No, I'm going to go figure out why Harris Teeter's not calling me back. I applied for that job like 3 days ago.
Mike, I really appreciate you taking time out, and if there's anything I can do to help you achieve whatever you're trying to do, don't hesitate to reach out. This is what I do, is I try to help people be resilient, and truly you are a phenomenal example of that. And I appreciate you sharing this with the people who listen to my show. Wishing you immense success with this book and with all that you do. Just total respect, man. Thank you.